Hello, welcome to Indie Tutorials. My name is Guillermo and I would like to thank the patrons supporting this channel. Today we are going to look at creating a scene changer with a nice portal so we can transition from one scene to another scene. Like so. Also we are going to fix a couple of issues with the Cinemachine camera wrapper and the character controller gravity. Let's start. To add a scene changer, we need to go in Window, Gaming is Love, and then select the Machinum Scene Wizard. From here we can click on Create Game Object and start typing Scene, and we see here several options, so let's select Scene Changer 3D, and this will create a new game object with a scene changer component. Alternatively, we could create an empty game object, and from the context menu, so let's create empty, add component, and start typing scene changer, and then we have this scene changer component that can be added as well. Okay, but let's keep the first one, so let me delete the second one, and let's take a look at the component itself and what it contains. So the first thing that we see here is that when changing scene, we are able to block player and camera controls. So this is to disable the player to control the character while switching scenes. Okay. Down below we have the target scene, so this is where we put the name of the scene that we want to transition to, and after transition where we want to spawn the player. So we could decide whether to use a position in the scene itself or the spawn ID, having another spawn point component on the second scene or the scene that we want to transition to. So we are going to leave it as it is. Next, you could, if you wanted to play a clip while the transition is going on. And before that we have also this add target scene. I already tested this, it's not documented, so for example if we had scene 1 here and then we add target scene 2, I don't see the point because it went directly to the scene 2. So I'm not sure why we have this add target scene to have several scenes to transition to, no idea. Anyways, if we go scroll down, we see that we have the possibility to have our own screen fade. A screen fade is just an image that is going to be on top of the view to hide whatever is going on underneath the image. And by default, this setting is governed, or the setup is coming from the editor, Machinum editor. And then if we go to game and then game settings, we have somewhere here down below this default screen fade. So this is the default screen fade that is going to be used across the game, and of course you have the chance to override these settings here in case you wanted, for example, the fade to be longer or not, or to change the color of the fading. Anyways, continuing, we can also change global or local variables after the second scene is loaded. And by default, scene changer, the auto start method is going to use the trigger enter, as we can see here. So start types trigger enter. So as soon as the trigger of the player enters the trigger of this game object, as we can see here, we have this trigger volume. By default is adding this sphere collider, and nothing is stopping you to change this collider to something more that can match the visual side of your scene changer. We are going to take a look at it in a bit. But as soon as the player enters this sphere collider is going to trigger the scene transition. Okay. At any time you can play with changing this how it behaves, but for the sake of this tutorial we'll keep the trigger transition or trigger enter start type. Okay. Of course you can also set down below conditions, so whether or not to enable this scene transition. Let's say that this is like a portal that needs a key, so you could have a general or global condition to check whether the player has this key in his inventory in order to enable or not this scene's changer component. Alright, so now let's set up our target scene. So for the sake of having another scene with a bunch of things in that scene already, I have downloaded this Unity particle pack in the project. So I put it here in my asset packs, Unity particle pack, and then we have these scenes and the main scene that comes with the pack. So what I like to do is save this scene as, and I'm going to select my project folder, scenes folder. I'm going to give it a name. I think that the hub or something like that, and let's click on save. After saving the scene, that we have it our scene list. But we do not need to forget to add this scene to the build list. So let's select here and add the hub scene to our list, and as well the sandbox. So we have sandbox and the hub. Okay. After that, now that we have the hub loaded, what I'm going to do is remove all this UI stuff that I don't need. We need the camera in the scene, so what I'm going to do is made a prefab out of our Cinemachine camera that we have in the sandbox and put it in here. So let's do that. Let's save the changes and let's go to the sandbox. So we have our main camera. Let's select our prefabs folder, and inside I will say the characters perhaps, let's put it here. So let's create a prefab out of this camera. There we go. So now we can go back to our hub scene and select the place where to put this camera in the first place. So I would like to start something. Let me remove the grid. Something like here perhaps. So the first thing we need to do is to add a spawn point. So let's call the Machinum Wizard, Scene Wizard. Let's go to create game object, and then let's start typing spawn point. So it will create this spawn point at this location. Let's click on the F key to frame it, and you can see that the Z position is pointing towards the wall, and we need to point actually towards the inside of the level. So let's move it just a little bit here, and then click on the E key to have the rotation pivot or toolset, and let's just move the pivot, something like that. and it didn't the work I wanted. So let's just type here in the Y axis of the rotation 180. There we go. Now that we have the spawn point, and I'm going to set this to 0 and this to a nice 80, so we don't have decimals there. Okay, so now that we have our spawn point, let me check this particle effect that we have here. It's okay. Yeah, actually this is not the place I wanted to put, not with this rocket launcher here. My bad, guys. Let me check. So we actually want this point over here. Yeah, this is where the player starts. Sorry about that. Let me collapse all these game objects, and then we can move this point to this place. So let's move to view. So we have it here now, and now we can do the opposite and set to 0 in the Y. So now it's looking at inside the level itself, right? There we go. Is it? Yeah, make sure that it's not colliding with the floor, because we don't want the player to fall. But anyways, now that we have this point in the level, we can drag our camera prefab. And the reason we need the camera prefab at this place as well, and it went through the other side. So let's do the same thing. Select the camera, and then in the game object, move to view. So the reason we need the camera something like this is because the Cinemachine camera, it needs somehow the follow transform to be set, and I want to do is for this here to select this point and add it to the follow transform. So you can see that it is now looking at the right place somehow. Otherwise it's just mess up when it tries to load the scene for the first time and the player is not there already. After having this, now we can delete the player game object altogether and save the scene. So now that we have the spawn point and the main camera in place, we can go back to our sandbox scene and give it a try. So let's select the spawn point, the scene changer, press F to frame it, and let's perhaps move it a little bit away of this point, maybe in between the pillars. Like so. Click on save and press play. Well, not yet actually. We have to set the target scene here, so let's type the HUD, the hub. Remember that it needs to match the name of the scene, and also this scene to be included in the build scene list, right to work. So we are going to transition to the hub scene at the spawn ID that we set up with ID of 0, right? So now we can click actually and play and test it out. right? So you can see there we have our scene changer. So let's walk towards, and now we start transition. So this artifact that we see here, this is the scene fader. This is an image that is being loaded by Machinome, and this is only happening in the editor, so no worries about it. And now we are on the loaded scene, and we have an issue with the Cinemachine camera. So if we click here in the hierarchy, we can see that the target is completely lost. So we have no, we still follow the spawn point, but we have not looked at. So let's fix these bugs. And also another bug I want to fix. This is really difficult, so let me just set up the player look as the camera look and the player transform, so at least it's working again. The other thing what we need to fix is gravity. So right now we are using the character controller from Unity. So let's walk here and go to the stairs. So we went up, and if I wanted now to go down, we are not going down, we are floating. So we need to add gravity to our character controller. So let's stop play and let's start fixing these issues. So for the first thing that we need to fix about the Cinemachine camera, let's go into our Gaming is Love folder, Machinome 2, plugins, scripts, and we have this ORK Cinemachine camera plugin or wrapper. So let's open up in your Visual Studio editor or C# editor of choice. And even though there is a new version from the ticket I reported about this issue, it didn't work as I expected. So basically the issue is that the active camera, this active virtual camera, is lost. It's not set up, it's not set in the second camera when loading. So this is already having this new entry from the new version that was uploaded into the official Machinome site. But what I needed to do is here in the late update add a new entry here, and let's say line 127, and let's just check whether if this camera control active virtual camera is null. Just return now. So let's keep the formatting convention, and yeah, this is going to be triggered in the late update every frame. So if this component is null, it will just not go through all this the other code that we have below. So this is just fine. So this is for the camera fix. To fix the character controller gravity issue, we need to go into our scripts folder, characters, and then in the character movement script, let's double click on that one to open it in Visual Studio. And let's say that around here below the rotation speed, let's add a variable to store, so private float, and let's call it Y speed. Then scroll down until we see this update method, and here on each update we want to set the speed, the Y speed, to be plus equals. That means it's going to be incremental update, and then we need to pass the physics, the Unity physics. If I can type physics gravity, and we select the y of the gravity times time delta time. So this will incrementally add to this y speed variable, and of course the last thing we need to do is apply this value to our character controller. Since we are using root motion, we can go down below where we have our onAnimator move, and then we have this velocity vector3 variable that we created to store the delta position of the animator. So we could at this point select the velocity and the y parameter of this vector3 and assign the y speed again times time delta time. Okay, so that will fix our gravity issue. Let's go back to Unity and let's give it a try. Okay, so let's expand a little bit the game view. And well, another thing to fix is if you don't like this screen fader artifact, what you can do is change the aspect to QHD, and that will fix it. So let's click on play. And let's jog towards the scene changer. So the screen fader is fixed, and you can see now that we are in the scene. The camera is working again. Let me turn off the gizmos and walk towards the stairs. So we went up, and now we can go down. There we go. So as a bonus, now I'm going to add a nice visual effect to our scene changer. I'm going to use the fantasy portal effects from Arcanor. So let me stop play mode and let's set it up. Okay, so what I did is into our scene changer game object, I added the particle effects and the portal mesh from the samples that came with this fantasy portal effects package as a child objects to the scene changer game object. So what I want to do now is change this sphere collider. So let's select on add component and start typing box collider and select the box collider. Let's click on the edit collider, and you have now these little dots that you can use to change the size of the box collider. So let's start playing with it. Something like that, and let's say about that. And remember to click on is trigger. Now that we have our new collider, we can delete this sphere collider. Click on save, and at this point you could create a prefab out of this scene changer. So let's do that. Prefabs environment, and I already did it. So we have this scene changer prefab here. Okay, so let's test it out. And everything works as expected. Okay, I hope you learned something new today, and Thank you for supporting the channel. See you on the next one. Bye bye.